At the Magic Academy, the protagonist Figo was being tortured to the point of falling to the ground in front of many students. A noble boy Tarte, the one who bullied Figo, thought that if he were in a world created by God, he would be the protagonist there. Tarte by putting his leg on Figo's shoulder and laughing, calling him a fool. The other students felt very sorry for Figo, but Tarte continued to bully him by poking at him. Figo was unable to wield a sword and did not know how to use magic, yet he still challenged Tarte, the top contender of the class. A teacher remarked that he did not approve of how Tarte treated his classmates so poorly. Other students agreed, but Tarte dismissed them all as foolish peasants and warned that anyone who tried to boss him around would hear from his father. Tarte then called out to his servants, and two students approached him like obedient dogs. He asked them to bring him a towel because he was a bit sweaty, to which a fat servant replied that it was already prepared. The other students commented that Tarte even treated his classmates like servants, and that the only important person was their father, not Tarte himself. Tarte was described as very wealthy, powerful, and talented, born with everything he could ever want. In class, the teacher told the students that after the physically demanding PE class, which he himself did not want to do, he asked them all to open their modern history textbooks to page 129. The students felt as if the teacher was already as unmotivated as they were. The teacher then began recounting a story from about 100 years ago when a war between humans was fought using swords and magic. The war ended thanks to a single king, and the first unified world nation in history was established, the Kingdom of Astoria, where they all currently lived. Around 100 years later, the kingdom's rule had passed down to the fifth king. The teacher explained that ruling the world was incredibly difficult, and only the most exceptional people could achieve it. He emphasized that the students should remember an important upcoming event happening in 8 months, the King's Selection Exam, also known as the King's Trial, which was held once every 20 years. All citizens of Astoria were qualified to participate, but only one winner would receive the Regalia. The exam was a test for the entire nation, designed so that only one person could pass, making it the most brutal exam in the world. Tarte was very excited because he believed himself worthy of winning it. At lunchtime, every student was seated at their place eating. When two of Tarte's servants approached him with their lunch and invited him to eat together, they noticed that Tarte was surrounded by a variety of exquisite foods, and even a maid was attending to his chores alongside the two servants, reflecting his noble status. The food before him was top tier. Tarte explained that he had a personal chef and had reserved a section of the kitchen specifically to prepare meals for the upcoming king's trial. He said he wanted the best body and fluids, achieved through the best food. He added that eating the food of fools was what those other students deserved. The other students felt deeply insulted by this, as they had been called fools, and their meals had been dismissed as food for fools, which was very disrespectful to them. One student grew angry, but another urged him to stop and think about Tarte's father, a doting lord who, about a year ago, had been punched and injured by someone. That person's entire family assets had been seized, forcing them to leave town during the night. The first student then shouted that both Tarte and his father were like trash. Another told him to calm down, while a third reassured them not to worry, saying that even if such a kid were left alone, he would eventually get what he deserved. Meanwhile, as Figo was carrying his food, his leg slipped and the food was about to fall on Tarte. Tarte dodged just in time, and the food instead hit the face of his chubby servant. The other students felt relieved it had not hit Tarte, although they might have felt a little satisfaction if it had. The fat servant angrily confronted Figo, asking what he was doing, and wondered if Figo was planning to take revenge for being beaten in PE class. Figo immediately stood up, clasped his hands in front of him, and apologized, explaining that he hadn't gotten enough sleep and that his muscles were hurting, which made it difficult to move properly. He said he had been helping around the house until late the previous night. The servant angrily shouted at him not to make excuses. Then someone suggested that Figo should borrow a dishcloth, which shocked one of the boys. Figo apologized for the incident, but the boy shouted, asking why he was getting so excited over nothing. Tarte then stood up, shouting that they should leave as he had no time to waste on someone foolish like Figo. Another boy blamed Figo entirely, but Figo said he only intended to bring a dustcloth. When he made a strange noise, the boys wondered what kind of sound he was trying to make. Tarte left, thinking he didn't want to waste time on such a fool. After the academy day ended, the students began leaving. Tarte, riding in a carriage with an attendant, was told about his schedule. First, he had to use applied magic at 5 p.m., then potential science at 6, followed by dinner with his father at 7. At 9, he had basic physical training and combat practice, and at 11:15 he was to bathe and go to sleep. Tarte enjoyed his tea while asking if this was the optimal plan for passing the king's trial. The attendant agreed, and Tarte said he had no objections. Finally, Tarte arrived at his mansion where his father welcomed him and asked how lunch had been at the academy with the personal chef. Tarte happily replied that it was perfect and exactly as expected from his father. His father then asked if there was anything else Tarte wished to discuss privately, assuring him not to hesitate because he would do everything necessary to help him become king and eliminate any obstacles in his way. Tarte was delighted, calling his father an amazing person. His father agreed, and Tarte proceeded with his scheduled activities, feeling that everything was perfectly arranged to make him king. He believed he was loved by God and blessed by the world. As he bathed, he thought it was no exaggeration to say he was already becoming king. Finally, the day of the graduation ceremony arrived. During the event, Figo accidentally spilled something on Tarte's clothes again, which greatly upset Tarte since he had that outfit specially made for the occasion. Figo apologized profusely, saying it was more of a request than a complaint, and if Tarte was okay with it, then that was good. Tarte felt a little strange about the whole situation. Earlier, when Tarte had gone to his locker room, other students were busy with their own activities. There, Tarte found a letter from a girl claiming she had something very important to discuss with him. Tarte blushed at the love letter and thought it was only natural for someone to fall for him. The other students wondered why Tarte was laughing to himself. On the day of the graduation ceremony, all the students were seated together. Tarte gave a speech and concluded by thanking everyone. The host made a remark about Tarte's unusual outfit. As Tarte was leaving, the host thanked him warmly. Some students commented on the cap on Tarte's head, which resembled a crown, and the peacock wrapped around his neck, saying it showed poor taste. After everything, Tarte went to the same tree where he had been asked to come, looking around nervously to see who the girl might be. His face was noticeably red. Suddenly, Figo appeared and remarked that Tarte had indeed come, apologizing for making him wait. Tarte was shocked to see Figo and asked why he was there and what he wanted. Figo was equally surprised and asked if Tarte hadn't come because of the letter, adding that he had something important to discuss with him. Tarte then realized the truth, that Figo had been the one who placed the letter, and it wasn't a love letter for him after all. Figo asked Tarte to have a battle with him, explaining that he had always been mocked for not being able to wield a sword, and, as the son of a blacksmith, he lacked magical power as well. However, Figo wanted to prove to Tarte that even someone like him, with nothing, could become king. To do so, he needed to surpass Tarte, who was his complete opposite. Figo expressed his strong desire to bury his past of constantly losing to Tarte in class and to make his way to the royal capital. Tarte then asked what benefit he would gain if he accepted the challenge. Figo hesitated upon hearing this. Tarte continued, saying that normally he would say it was a special day, but instead, he asked Figo to head to the schoolyard, promising that for trampling on Tarte's feelings, he would make Figo pay a good price. Other students gathered around the ground, excitedly mentioning that a duel was about to take place. One of Tarte's servants said he had brought an imitation sword and a cane for Tarte. Others commented that it seemed like a fight was about to happen between Tarte and Figo. One boy asked another if he was really going to watch the duel, but the other denied, saying the outcome was already decided and Figo would surely lose. The first boy agreed, suggesting they just watch Figo's efforts. Figo appeared holding a heavy hammer, which shocked everyone as it was surprisingly large and had many attachments. Figo explained that it was his magnum opus, forged with every ounce of his blacksmithing skill. He even told Tarte not to hold back. Tarte wondered if Figo was just trying to intimidate him with the hammer's appearance, thinking it was a foolish tactic. Then Tarte called out to the teacher to serve as the judge and asked how much he wanted for the role. The teacher requested 10,000, to which Tarte agreed. The teacher then announced that the duel between Figo and Tarte would begin. He explained that the match would end when one participant was unable to continue fighting or declared surrender. With both fighters ready with their weapons, the duel commenced. Figo rushed forward swinging his hammer, while Tarte used his staff and sword to cast flame magic, summoning a giant fireball to strike at Figo. The other students were shocked to see such a huge fireball, especially since it was only beginner-level magic. Figo was stunned but remained standing holding his hammer. The students wondered if Figo intended to take the attack head-on. The hammer's output was at 80% and its booster activated, striking the fireball with a device called Pagnus Ex Machina, sending the fireball back. The students were shocked when Figo sent the fireball flying back. Figo mentioned that using 80% power suddenly required serious recall. Tarte wondered what that meant, realizing it was the real strength of Figo, a combination of magic reflexes, a trigger-activated booster, and strength built by someone who had neither sword skills nor magical ability. Figo declared that he would become king with the help of machines. The students became excited and praised Figo, calling him amazing. Some even changed their minds about him. They all began cheering for Figo, which angered Tarte, who told them not to cheer for his opponent. Tarte realized that he had now become the underdog. However, Tarte believed there was no way machines could surpass true magic. He prepared to attack Figo using lightning magic, the Thunder Spear. The teacher thought Tarte had recognized his disadvantage in firepower and thus prioritized speed, switching to lightning magic, which was impressive and a textbook basic tactic. Tarte planned to close in on Figo, who might be paralyzed, and land a strike. As Tarte approached, calling Figo a fool and claiming no one who didn't know how to wield a sword could handle such a massive weapon, Figo suddenly swung his hammer to strike Tarte down, causing the watching students to exclaim in surprise. Figo explained that the wooden swords they used in class were very light and that Tarte's entire body had been swung around because of that. That was why Figo had forged his hammer in that shape. After all, as the son of a blacksmith, he was determined not to lose to anyone when it came to hammers. The students continued cheering for Figo while Tarte grew angry, thinking that although he was born with wealth, talent, and power, and had never slacked off in his efforts, having trained with the best tutors chosen by his father, he would never allow Figo to become king. With this determination, Tarte struck Figo with the thunder javelin. The teacher observed that Tarte panicked and relied on moves he had used earlier, but Figo had already anticipated them. Figo then used 50% of his hammer's output to strike the ground, propelling himself into the air to attack Tarte. Tarte fell to the ground, frightened, and the other students were shocked to see Figo's bold move. Tarte, feeling that he possessed everything, was loved by God, and was the protagonist of this world, became even more scared. Figo then unleashed a full power strike at 100% output called Meteorite Ex Machina. Everyone realized just how powerful the attack was. After a while, a stone hit the teacher's back, prompting him to look toward the battleground. He saw Tarta lying on the ground and announced Figo as the winner. The other students cheered enthusiastically, praising Figo as amazing. One boy remarked that he had already said people like Tarte get what they deserve in reality. Figo approached Tarte and woke him up, expressing happiness that Tarte was awake. He offered his hand, thanking him for fighting without holding back. Tarte began crying, shouting that Figo was a fool and insisted he had not lost. He claimed Figo's use of machines was cheating and should not count, and challenged Figo to fight him fairly with swords. The other students wondered if Tarte had lost his mind. The teacher confirmed that Tarte had indeed lost the battle. Tarte continued crying, calling everyone fools, and demanded they not look at him or expect forgiveness for doing so. He threatened that they would all be executed and that he would tell his father about this humiliation. Unable to bear the scene any longer, the students began to leave. As they departed, the teacher approached Figo, patted his head, and told him he should go home now. Even after everyone had left, it started raining, and Tarte was still standing there, melting under the rain. However, the teacher continued standing beside him, using his magic to create an umbrella that covered them both. Up until that moment, the teacher reflected on how strong Figo had been that day. He was sure that Figo had thought deeply and worked extremely hard. Tarte began to cry, wondering if he himself had really put in as much effort as Figo. The teacher asked Tarte if he was certain about that. Tarte replied that his father had truly chosen the best trainers for him. The teacher explained that it was not Tarte's effort alone, but the efforts of the adults around him who had shaped him into the king he was becoming. Tarte had simply moved forward without much thought, relying on the hard work of those around him. Then the teacher prepared to say something that might sound harsh. He said that, from the way he saw Tarte now, he was just an ordinary rich kid, and if he stayed like that, he would never become a true king. The wealth and power Tarte thought he owned were not truly his, nor were the efforts he believed to be his own. The teacher asked what Tarte had really done for himself. Tarte simply made the protective cover disappear by command. After saying what he needed to say, the teacher said he felt better now and was going back, reminding Tarte to take care not to cool his head too much or he might catch a cold. After all this, Tarte returned home, where his father, worried about his delay, asked where he had been for so long. Tarte seemed sad, but said it was nothing. As Tarte headed forward, his father told him that while Tarte was at the graduation ceremony, he had already prepared the journey to the royal capital, so Tarte could receive the best possible training even during the trip. He had also arranged a top-tier support team who would be introduced to Tarte the next day. Tarte turned to thank his father and went upstairs, feeling tired and ready to rest. His father agreed, telling him to go ahead and have some rest. While taking a bath, Tarte felt a bit strange in his shoulder and recalled how heavy the graduation outfit had been, making his movements sluggish afterward. He tried to calm himself by thinking how troublesome it was when an outfit coordinator failed to pay attention to small details, and he decided the support team should assign a new coordinator. He realized again that it was the effort of the adults around him that shaped him into a king. Then, recalling the teacher's words, Tarte began to cry heavily. Later, he went to his room but remained worried about what the teacher had told him. While packing his bags, he felt sorry for his father, thinking that he did not need any support and would become king without relying on his father's power. This belief made him decide to sneak out from home, thinking he was born with everything and was the protagonist of the world. With that thought in mind, he left his house at midnight. The scene shifted to the time when Tarte was dueling with the teacher, enduring intense hardship. He wondered if the teacher's moves were truly unfair. The teacher questioned whether Tarte would still claim otherwise when things slipped beyond his control. During the exam, Tarte had read books from all over the world and studied under every master he could find. He was certain that he had worked harder than any other candidate, yet he still could not become king because the throne was the highest place, and the weak could not rise to it. Tarte had been constantly tortured and bullied, labeled a complete weakling, and doubted whether he could even reach the final stage. They said he had no talent and was more of a failure. The teacher added that if Tarte couldn't even defeat someone considered a loser like him, how could he expect to become king? He warned Tarte not to look down on his dreams. Checking the time, the teacher mentioned that only 2 minutes remained and told Tarte to bring everything he had. Tarte agreed, rushing forward with his wand and sword, reminding himself that he had done nothing but train to be king and had never skipped practice. Everyone had told him that if he followed the rules and gave his all, he would become king. Yet now he wondered why things were happening this way and what he was supposed to do next. Then Tarte fell, as the teacher simply dodged his attack. He thought about his lessons, the knowledge from books, and all the means at his disposal, but he still could not become king. He questioned what he truly possessed. He came to understand that a person's real strength was revealed when they were backed into a corner. With only 30 seconds left, the teacher asked if that was all Tarte had. Tarte trembled and cried. The teacher encouraged him, saying that giving up would get him nowhere, and kneeling would never make him king. Tarte thought that if he could not show something now, he was no different from a mere user. He had to prove what was inside him. The teacher urged him to stand up and prove that his claim to become king was true. Tarte wondered why nothing was working and why he was failing at everything he had ever learned. He recalled the teacher's earlier words that he would never become king. Now, he realized there was still something left within him. Tarte kept crying, thinking he had nothing. Then he remembered Figo's words, that even Figo was empty inside but still wanted to become king. Inspired by that, Tarta gained confidence, telling himself he would not lose to someone he considered a loser because he was the hero of his own story. With renewed determination, he rushed to attack the teacher again. The teacher noticed Tarte charging recklessly once more. Tarta used fire magic, a fireball, but the teacher understood this was meant to amplify Tarte's sword speed and strength, a move similar to Figo's technique. The teacher took the hit but managed to stand, which surprised Tarte. The teacher then said that the 3-minute time limit was over. He admitted the last attack had surprised him, but was not enough to defeat him, as he had endured worse blows before. Tarte grew angry, wondering if he had lost again. The teacher thought that at first, Tarte truly had nothing. But losing had taught him not to give away everything. Sometimes one had to keep some for oneself. Tarte reflected that if he really had nothing, then he should take whatever he could. Yet, if strength came only from someone who had been beaten down before, that was the worst kind of power. The teacher felt this was pathetic, but if Tarte was willing to claw toward his dream despite such disgrace, it meant he was an underdog who could easily remain a loser if he stayed like that. So, the teacher suggested that Tarte hire him, not as a servant, but as a mentor. In that way, no one else but Tarte himself would truly benefit from his own strength. Tarte was furious and called the teacher annoying, but he refused to argue since the teacher had passed the test. He asked to be allowed to become king now. The teacher replied that they should work officially together and inquired about payment. Tarte was shocked by the question, but the teacher said they would discuss it after the results. The teacher then left home without any money, eventually collapsing in public. The teacher asked Tarte not to bring up such concerns. But then a lady arrived and said she had already mailed Tarte's father about the contract with teacher Romeo. The teacher was shocked at how quickly it had happened and mentioned they would still need money if they were to continue traveling. He then suggested looking into the traveling subquest. Tarte didn't know about the subquest, so teacher Romeo explained that it was a way for travelers to earn money along the road by completing tasks such as gathering herbs, hunting monsters, and other similar jobs. Essentially, it involved helping people out and getting paid for it. He proposed they check what kinds of requests were currently available in the town. Tarte was unfamiliar with all this, and as they walked together, they suddenly heard a noise and saw smoke, which scared Tarte. Teacher Romeo reassured him not to worry, saying someone must be in trouble, and that meant an opportunity to earn cash. He urged Tarte to hurry before anyone else arrived. Tarte ran alongside him, thinking that if he found a better mentor, he would definitely replace Romeo immediately. Suddenly, a monster appeared, and they fled the scene. There was a man holding a slime creature in a small cage, and others suggested just handing it over to the monster. The man wondered if someone was trying to steal his reward and questioned who that person was. A boy named Kajira stood on top of the monster, declaring that in the next royal exam, he would be the one to become the Demon King. The scene recalled an hour earlier when the people wondered if Kajira wanted to become the Demon King. Kajira agreed and explained that the king's role was to bring harmony between monsters and humans. The people were confused by his words until a one-eyed man suddenly rushed forward to attack him, insisting that such a thing was impossible. However, Kajira's monster struck and broke the man's sword. Kajira believed he could make it happen despite others saying it was impossible. The people were shocked that the monster obeyed Kajira and were unsure what was happening. Kajira then demanded that they return his slime, promising he would consider letting them off easy if they did. The man holding the slime doubted that Kajira truly thought they would return it. Angered, Kajira warned them not to complain if they got hurt, and attacked. Just then, Teacher Romeo intervened, blocking the attack, which caused the people to wonder who he was. Romeo reassured them not to worry, saying he did not intend to harm anyone. Before things could continue, Romeo asked if this was the one-time deal for which he was paid. Tarte arrived and told Romeo not to run off like that. Kajira wondered if these were all their allies, but decided it didn't matter, even if more arrived. The monster then attacked Tarte, and Romeo told Tarte to let them explain as he would handle the situation. Kajira rushed to attack Romeo with enough power to break his umbrella, which shocked Romeo. Kajira remarked that Romeo had some serious skills, and Romeo thought Kajira was different from ordinary kids. Tarte simply wondered what the chaos was about and asked for the cash. The one-eyed man questioned what was going on, complaining it was supposed to be his line. He did not care who they were, but if they paid him, he would help them. Kajira agreed, and the man explained that the slime was a rare species called the egg slime, which could fetch at least 1,000,000 years worth of value on the market. He asked them to escort them to the next village and promised they would be paid $100,000 each. Teacher Romeo was shocked by the large payout. Tarte asked to spare the change, but the man pleaded not to say that, explaining his daughter was seriously ill and he needed a super rare herb to treat her, which was why he was begging. Tarte suspected it was a lie, but knew even a small amount of cash would help them now. He hesitated, but then asked if he should take the deal. At that moment, some old people started running away, reminding them it was the deal they had made and that they were counting on them. As they fled, Kajira asked Romeo why he hadn't gotten in their way, saying he would have flattened them. Romeo then shouted that if Kajira was willing to give them 100,000 each, they should not get in the way. Kajira wondered why the man was suddenly angry with him. Romeo glanced at Tarte, thinking that, although he hated losing such a large sum of money, his focus now should be on Tarte's growth. He then approached Tarte and asked him to have a quick match with Kajira. Tarte was shocked, wondering why the challenge was directed at him. Kajira struck at them, but Tarte dodged the attack. Kajira explained that it was just a fake-out and rushed forward again, instructing his monster Kinta to hold them off and told them to fall back and hold their ground. As Kajira ran away, Romeo told Tarte to chase after him while he dealt with the monster. A lady accompanying Romeo began to follow Tarte, but was stopped by Romeo. When she questioned his reasoning, he suggested she let Tarte handle it alone. She replied that she was instructed by Tarte's father to protect him, and if Tarte intended to interfere with her, she would have to consider him an enemy. She warned him not to forget how easily she could defeat Tarte if he got captured. Romeo wondered if she seriously thought he would fight a delicate lady. While it might seem so, he assured her he was a gentleman. The monster was confused as Tarte and the girl began to argue. Meanwhile, the people carrying the slime were running away. Eventually, Kajira found them and was about to punch them, demanding the return of his slime. However, an earth magic stone bullet suddenly struck him. It was from Tarte. Kajira became furious, calling Tarte ridiculously persistent. Tarte also grew angry. While the old people with the slime fled, their leader stayed behind, thinking that Tarte was no match on his own, but the boss would step in if necessary. Tarte told Kajira to surrender unless he wanted to get hurt. Kajira wondered what he was talking about, confident he was stronger than Tarte. Feeling ashamed, Tarte warned Kajira not to underestimate him. He even called Kajira a commoner before using earth magic to lift a giant rock and strike with a rock cannon. Kajira responded with a single punch, without using any magic, that shattered the giant rock into small pieces. He then asked Tarte how that felt and if he was scared. Tarte gave a blank expression and said he wasn't scared. He added that Kajira should realize how many attacks he had already blocked that week and that he had built up a tolerance. Then, he started laughing. Kajira remarked that it seemed Tarte had faced some truly tough opponents, and now he would come at him with his full power. He moved so fast that even when Tarte tried to slash at him, Kajira was able to jump and dodge. Then, using his tail, Kajira struck Tarte, causing him to fall to the ground. Kajira said that now Tarte would be terrified. Tarte, surprised, wondered how that tail was even possible. Kajira explained that it was no trick. The tail was real because he was half monster and half human, which was why he had a tail. Tarte became angry and insisted that there was no such thing, but Kajira claimed that he had been standing right there. Tarte called him a liar, wondering how a human and a monster could have a child together. and told him to stop with such nonsense. He explained that monsters and humans had been mortal enemies, warring for centuries, and peaceful relations between them were extremely rare. No one believed it was possible for a human and a monster to have a child. Kajira said he would provide proof and challenged Tarte to strike him with his strongest magic, promising not to block or dodge the attack. Tarte wondered how that would prove anything but decided to continue attacking. Kajira teased him, asking if Tarte was afraid that he would block his magic again. Tarte, now truly furious at Kajira's smug attitude, warned that he would regret it and launched a fireball at him. To Tarte's shock, Kajira swallowed the fireball without harm. Seeing Tarte's shocked expression, Kajira remarked that it was far too early for him to be scared. The scene then shifted back to teacher Romeo and a lady with a monster standing behind them. The lady commented that Tarte was strong and determined to fight. He was no ordinary child. Romeo responded that, in terms of combat alone, Tarte was a true vessel for the king, which was exactly why Romeo wanted him to lose. He explained that defeat was something Tarte desperately needed at this point. The lady did not understand and asked if Romeo was being overly optimistic. She worried that if things went badly, the outcome wouldn't be so neat, especially if it was more than a simple loss. Meanwhile, Tarte was truly terrified as Kajira struck him from the side with a fireball. Romeo was striking his wand alongside a lady when they suddenly heard a noise. Tarte remarked that a cold blade was being overly protective. Just before they met, Tarte overheard people referring to him as the king's vessel, calling him a murderer rather than a student, an assassin at best, and merely a thug. They said that defeat could serve as a seed for growth and that being defeated was a precious opportunity. Kajira admitted that he was unsure how to properly use magic, but explained that he could absorb and digest magic, then shoot it from his body, which was monstrous in nature. The leader of the bad guys observed the scene with curiosity, wondering what Kajira truly was and if he really was a monster, someone so formidable that defeating him seemed impossible. He recalled that even such a being was expected to take the royal selection test. Kajira declared that he was neither demon nor human, but a monster. And that was why he would become the king who would unite monsters and humans, ultimately becoming the Demon King. Tarte lay down, realizing he wouldn't win this battle. Meanwhile, Romeo reflected that a martial artist specializing in magic and defense was causing him pain. The lady said she wasn't worried about Romeo's life or death, but feared his heart might break. Romeo replied that it was fine if it did, questioning whether mere defeat would be enough. He challenged that losing without pain was meaningless and told them to bring it on. Kajira pleaded with Tarta not to hurt them, begging for his friend's release. Tarte thought that if the world was a creation of God, then he should be the protagonist. Still, as he looked at the sunset, he wondered if he would lose again because of a monster. He considered that the king of the royal capital was chosen through a test, and it shouldn't matter if he lost. Without the qualification to take the exam, a monster like Kajira was just a waste of effort to counter and pointless to him. Tarte believed that being captured in the royal capital and made a spectacle was what Kajira deserved. That was why Kajira would never become king. Determined, Tarte struck Kajira again with earth magic. Kajira used his hand to shatter the rock, wondering what Tarte planned next. Filled with rage, Tarte declared that he was the one destined to be king. Kajira understood that Tarte was analyzing him carefully and rushed forward, warning him not to dare regret it. Tarte prepared himself to fight back, determined to battle until sunset. As he slashed at Kajira, Kajira leapt away, but Tarte attacked again. However, Kajira swallowed the attack and struck back with his hand, leaving Tarte shocked. Tarte then used earth magic to hurl many small stones at Kajira, who continued to swallow the attacks and retaliate. After some time, Tarte was seriously injured. Kajira jumped to the ground and wondered if Tarte would stop now. The man observing from behind thought that Kajira was incredibly strong and that they had no chance of winning against him. Tarte declared that the sun had set and used a flash of light magic to create a dazzling shine, blinding Kajira. He explained that the one who darkened the light was waiting for this moment, and that from his observations, Kajira could only absorb formless magic. Physical magic would not work on him. Tarte believed he should have used his most powerful physical attack earlier. Kajira rose, ready to devour the attack. Tarte unleashed his maximum firepower with a fireball, which caused him immense pain. Despite that, the power behind the attack was insufficient, and Tarte refused to dodge. He attacked Kajira again. The man watching thought Tarte had somehow launched the attack from himself and was moving along with it, which made him look foolish. Tarte landed a hit, but Kajira stopped it with his teeth. Tarte thought he didn't care if Kajira blocked the attack. He would keep swinging because he was the protagonist. After a brutal strike, Tarte made Kajira fall to the ground and stood over him. The man watching was shocked to see that Tarte had won. Tarte felt genuinely happy about his victory. Kajira got up and admitted he had misjudged Tarte, adding that it had been just a single hit. Tarte was extremely angry, wondering what was wrong with Kajira, especially since he himself had already reached his limits. Kajira asked in shock if Tarte had really come this far and whether he truly wanted to become king. He also questioned if Tarte had any particular reason for wanting to become king. Tarte responded that unlike Kajira, he did not have some grand theory. He was simply someone who had everything and was loved by the gods. He believed he was the main character of this world, born to become king. Tarte had always believed in this and never doubted it, which was why he never knew how to give up on his dream. He could not understand why Kajira found that so frightening. Kajira admitted that Tarte was a sincere person and that he understood him. He acknowledged Tarte as a worthy rival who chased the same dream, suggesting that they should settle their dispute properly. At that moment, the man who had been watching from behind intervened, telling them to stop, and that he would return the slime, so there was no need to continue fighting. Tarte was surprised and then collapsed, complaining about the heat. The man tried to snap Tarte out of it. After some time, when Tarte opened his eyes, he found himself lying on a bed, being treated for his wounds. The same man returned with some water and was happy to see that Tarte was awake. When Tarte wondered where they were, the man revealed that they were in his house. They heard some sounds, and when they came out to see, Tarte noticed that the slime and the man's daughter were playing by jumping on the belly of the monster. Kajira was standing nearby, and Romeo and the lady, the wife of the man, were also there. The wife came over, wondering if Tarte's injuries had fully healed. Two other people arrived as well, mentioning that, as expected from the medicinal herb, Tarte had recovered. They all gathered to apologize and explain that, as they could see, the daughter's illness was gone. She had not been able to get up until a few days ago. To cure her, a medicinal herb called the 1,000 poisonous grass had been necessary. Tarte then understood the situation. They learned that the herb seemed to grow only on the monster-infested island in the demon world, and obtaining it would have required a huge sum of money. It turned out that Kajira was the one who possessed the medicinal herb. Tarte remarked that it was really fortunate. Kajira responded that he did not need to fight with Tarte. Feeling annoyed, Tarte told him not to mess with him and asked why he had such an expensive herb. Kajira explained that many of those herbs grew locally. Tarte called him a liar, insisting that no ordinary person could survive in such a demon realm. The man agreed, saying that Kajira was not an ordinary boy, and that he was the one who gave them the medicinal herb. Tarte was the one who had fought for them until he had reached such a state. Tarte replied that it was none other than the man himself. The man then gave Tarte some money, saying he could never thank him enough and that it was a token of gratitude and an apology for the trouble caused, asking him to accept it. Rumi, acting selfishly, went to take the money, wondering which part he should take since it seemed less than the promised amount. Tarte called him greedy and told him to get back. After that, they all prepared to leave. The man mentioned that if they went to the port town ahead, they should find a ship going to the royal capital. He said that in the past, he had been an adventurer but failed the first test, which was why he understood the fear of giving up on a dream so well. Though it was a bit of a glitch, he said he would encourage both Tarte and Kajira to do their best. If it was up to them, he believed they could become kings. Kajira pointed out that only one person could become king. The man agreed but said he would be rooting for both of them. Tarte became emotional, which made Kajira wonder why he was crying. Tarte shouted that he was not crying and was shocked to learn that Kajira was also coming with them. Kajira asked if something was wrong, to which Tarte replied that they were not even friends. The lady told Romeo that it seemed like they had reached a compromise. Romeo felt bad about the situation. The scene shifted to a boat that was being attacked by a monster. The ship's master was asked to protect the vessel when suddenly a ghost appeared. The man asked Sherry if such a thing really showed up. Sherry told him to leave it to the future king. Another girl warned Sherry not to fall asleep. Sherry replied that she knew and that she was in the 6th full class. The man said it was really annoying and urged her to hurry up and finish. Sherry agreed and decided to transform using her magical girl dress. The scene shifted to the place where examination forms were being filled. A lord noticed that it resembled the Adventurers Guild. Sherry had just finished washing dishes, and a lady told her that she had been very helpful and must be tired after fighting the boss. Sherry replied that she was completely fine since her family ran a tavern, and working there helped her feel relaxed. A customer asked if he could place an order, and Sherry agreed before approaching him. The lady expressed her appreciation for Sherry's help. When Sherry went to take the order, the man requested beer, fish, chips, tissues, compresses, onion rings, a large broth, harsh shampoo, 1 chicken wing, and briefs. Sherry wrote everything down, wondering if she was running errands for her entire family. The man then asked to borrow her notepad so he could write it himself. She apologized but continued writing. Another man remarked that Sherry was quite clumsy. The storekeeper said he would let it slide, and everyone returned to their work. Finally, Tarte and the others arrived, and Sherry welcomed them by asking if they had come for the exam. Both Tarte and Kajira confirmed that they had. Sherry revealed that she was also there for the exam, which explained her feelings. She guessed that this made them rivals and wished them both the best. Tarte was flustered by her gentle smile and thought she was really cute.